Well, good evening, everyone. It is 8 minutes past the hour of 6 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. I am Brian Wilson. You're listening to a special edition of The Drive because we are live in Mount Juliet at Scoreboard at Cedar Creek Marina. And that's feedback. But we're glad that you are here, and we have the entire gang assembled. If you're watching on Super Talk TV, you'll see the bright shining faces of Dan Mandis, Matt Murphy, and over to my right is Chris Hand. We're all here until about 8 o'clock when the debate will begin, and we will be carrying that, of course, live here on Super Talk 99.7. I've been designated the driver of the car for the first hour here, and then Matt Murphy will take over for the next hour. Let me just start by going around the table. What do you expect to happen tonight, Dan Mandis? And take your time with that answer.
I expect Donald Trump to be disciplined. That's what he needs to do. He needs to be disciplined. I think that he learned from his debate with Joe Biden that good things can come when you're disciplined and you let the other person talk. Because Joe Biden talked himself into effectively being thrown out of the race. And I think if he does the same thing with Kamala Harris, it's going to be a huge success.
All right, Matt Murphy.
I have every faith in the world that Donald Trump will know what to do on his part. I don't believe that he will have the benefit of a half-dead candidate on the other side of the stage in the form of Joe Biden. Obviously, Kamala Harris is loaded for bear. I think if any of the indications that we've gotten about how she's preparing for the debate are true, she's preparing to go low, and I think Donald Trump would serve us well to go high and be above some of her zingers. We're told that she's trying to prepare these things. I would expect that those are going to be pre-prepared, and they're going to be like trying to fit a square peg into a round hole to a certain degree. But I expect her to try to zing him to get him off his game, but Donald Trump just doesn't get off his game in that fashion.
Why do you think she was so interested in having the microphones open, which they will not be open during the crosstalk? There will be no crosstalk. Whenever you're not speaking, your microphone is muted. But why do you think she wanted it open?
I'm speaking. Brian, I'm speaking. Brian, I'm speaking.
Yes,
Donald, I'm speaking.
Somebody suggested the way to handle that is that comes up is to say, yeah, we've been hearing you speaking, but you haven't been saying very much.
Well, that's an excellent retort. Yeah. I would also love it if Donald Trump got in the I'm speaking before Kamala Harris could get in the I'm speaking. Kamala, I'm speaking.
A preemptive strike.
I'm
speaking.
Chris Hand, your take.
Man, I'm as excited as could be. I feel like a kid on Christmas waiting at the top of the stairs for mom and dad to call me down. This is going to be fantastic. I do envision Donald Trump beating the brakes off of Kamala Harris tonight. I think that he's going to catch her off guard. He's going to make her answer questions that she hasn't had to answer because she hasn't done any interviews except for the CNN one, which was just so soft.
Yeah,
so he's going to have to call her card. He's going to call her out on her record, which she can't run away from as hard as she's trying to. But I wouldn't rule out a wild card possibility of Kamala Harris looking at him and going, I'm not sitting here with this racist, and storming out if things get bad.
Wow, that would be something, wouldn't it? You know, I look at this and I say, I was fascinated by this little factoid. Kamala Harris and Donald Trump have never met each other.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. They've never met each other face to face. Now, we know a lot about Donald Trump. We know a lot about Kamala Harris, but they don't know each other on a personal level. And so in that situation, who's likely to be the most nervous? I don't think it's Donald Trump.
Well, do you think
I think Donald Trump comes in and he's got the confidence, he's got the swagger. I hope that the swagger doesn't come through too much. I hope that he is what's that word that's big popular with the kids right now? Demure? I don't know if that's the right word, but I hope he's low key. A little lower key.
I think the word you're looking for is brat. Donald Trump needs to be brat. Is that right, Chris?
I think Kamala is going to be going for the brat.
Okay, that's right.
Brat is when you're loud and effusive and happy.
But I love it that you do the crossover with Chris Hand, and now you pretend like you know what the words mean.
Dan's hip. He's hip to the game. Here's the thing, though. They haven't met, and Donald Trump brings a presence with him. He brings an energy. It's going to be intimidating to her, and I think that she's going to have a hard time wrapping her head around that presence when she's confronted with it for the first time.
I think the other thing is Donald Trump, in my opinion, has nothing to prove. Kamala Harris has built up the momentum to this debate where everybody wants to know how she can possibly defend the changes that she's made to her political philosophies. She's done a 180 on everything. And so she needs to finally, because that Dana Batch interview was not good.
Yeah.
And so now everybody wants to know, Is this when Kamala Harris is finally going to defend what she is trying to do?
Here's my question about that is, how do you, if you're Donald Trump, get her to have to defend her positions? Because you don't get to address, each candidate cannot address the other.
Well, but you can't ask what you can. I think the method that you use, whatever question you're asked, you answer that question from the moderators, and you
make a statement.
You hold back about 15 seconds and say, but what I really want to know is, and whatever the nature of the question was, if it's about immigration and the border wall, what I really want to know is she still in favor of my border wall that she's using in her advertising? Kamala, are you? And just take it to her, because the moderators, Muir and Davis, I guess is the woman, they will ask the initial questions, right? Immigration, energy policy, foreign policy, Afghanistan. They won't follow. And Donald Trump is going to have to do their follow-up for them, in my opinion, and he has to finish off his statement with a question to her.
Now, I would say that the last debate, I thought they handled it pretty well. You and I
CNN did a good job.
CNN did a pretty good job there of playing it up the middle.
Hard to say, but they did.
Well, I mean, it really is hard to say, but I mean, I think they did. Do you have that same confidence about David Muir and the woman Davis?
Is he walking into a different animal? I mean, you've seen the reports. 100% of the Kamala coverage on ABC has been positive. 93% of the coverage of Donald Trump has been negative.
Right.
And I assume that 7% was the week after he got shot. That could only be the week after he got shot.
Yeah.
You know, so. Is he walking into a different kind of lion's den where I feel like the pressure was more on CNN to be fair and down the middle than the pressure's been on ABC in the lead up to this?
CNN, for better or for worse, is trying to reestablish itself as being up the middle. So by doing this at a time when everybody was watching CNN, they had a lot lot at stake. ABC doesn't have that at stake.
In media circles, in circles running in Washington, D.C., I think CNN kind of got dinged within that community for being even-handed.
Right.
Because being even-handed is looking as tilting for Trump. I wonder if ABC is going to swing hard the other way and kind of go against Trump. And it's all in the fashion of the questions, right? It's not in the nature in which they ask them. Nobody's going to stand up and point their finger at Donald Trump and demand an answer or whatnot. But it's all about the questions asked. I guarantee, and this is a Murphy guarantee, one of the first 3 questions asked by the panel tonight will have something to do with Donald Trump saying that he's putting his political opponents in jail. You said earlier this week that you would jail your political opponents. Mr. President, do you mean that? What do you mean by that? Guarantee.
I hope that's question 4, because I don't want to hear the Murphy was right song tomorrow on the air.
Well, I mean, it's going to be interesting to see, how the thing. Look, the thing about it is I don't see any other thing on the horizon that could have as big an impact on the total outcome of this election than what we're going to witness tonight. Are we all in agreement on that?
Yep.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, I think if Harris does really poorly, she might ask for another debate. But, I mean, if it's just sort of like a draw, I think that everybody's going to go to their corners and just battle it out till Election Day.
And the media is itching, I feel, to give Kamala Harris a win. So a draw will be called a win.
Yep.
I think if she maintains her composure through the 90 minutes of debate and answers some of these questions with any efficacy at all regarding her flip-flopping and changing her positions on all these issues, they will consider that a win. So I think draws become wins within the mainstream media circles. But I would agree with you. I don't think there will be another debate, because I don't think she'll fall on her face.
I don't either.
And I think this will be the high watermark in terms of people who are undecided trying to figure out where they are in the election cycle.
How nervous do you guys think Kamala Harris is right now at this very moment, wherever she is?
She's terrified. And you know why she's terrified? Because she knows that she hasn't been speaking to the media. She hasn't done what normal candidates do, which is defend her policies. She just put them on her website yesterday.
And she plagiarized about 80% of it from Joe.
That's exactly right.
Well, I mean, they're trying to run from issues. And here's the thing. Regardless of whether you agree with Trump on every single piece of policy or not, regardless of whether you agree with Trump on the manner in which he comports himself, there is no question that he is his authentic self. He is who he is. A lot of us get frustrated because he is who he is from time to time because it kind of hurts him from a political perspective. Kamala Harris is not the person that we're seeing. And everyone knows it because we saw her over the course of her vice presidency. We've seen her over the course of her Senate career. We've seen her as a candidate for president. And she's flipping her positions on virtually everything. She's being managed, carefully managed now. But she has to answer for that flip, right? She has to answer how you were I will give transgender surgeries to illegal aliens and the American taxpayer will pay for it, which was a position of Kamala Harris's. Now, I mean, you got to answer for the flip.
The federal prisoners, too. Everybody gets sex changes.
Oh, everybody.
At this rate, Donald Trump, if he loses and he goes to jail, he could get a taxpayer-funded federal sex change.
ACLU, what was the questionnaire from the ACLU in 2019, very revealing. And even CNN has had to go back and say, really? She held those positions? They were shocked, stunned, and amazed to learn that.
That was the craziest part of all of that to me was, what? She said what in 2019? It's like, yeah.
Not only did she say it, she answered affirmatively, and then she actually wrote it down.
Brian, I've got to ask, just as somebody who worked in TV for a long time, it is shocking to me, because I think maybe perhaps we all played that audio, but where Erin Burnett is like, she really said that? That's really... And I'm sitting here thinking, all of us have been talking about her positions for months now. And so how is it that CNN, are they lying or are they truly surprised?
I think it's a thing called the K file, and we used it earlier, and I'll ask Chris to have it queued up when we come back here in a moment. We'll play it out.
Yeah.
It was interesting because they got this guy named Kaczynski who comes on. They call it the K file. It's almost as if the management at CNN is trying to get them to be more balanced. But it's hard to turn an aircraft carrier around that's been going the same direction for a long time. And I think that they're using this guy to sort of bring some balance. And it's funny to watch the anchors because they're like, what?
But do you think that shock and disbelief is
genuine?
Fake?
I think it's genuine.
You think it's? Do you think they're that stuck in their echo chamber?
I think they are.
That is stunning to me.
They can't imagine that there's another way to look at it.
I think Erin Burnett is the constable in Casablanca. I am shocked to discover that there's gambling going on in Capitol. You're winning, sir. Oh, thank you very much.
All right. We'll take a commercial break. When we come back, we'll actually play that bit of audio. It is 20 minutes past the hour of 6 o'clock.
Hey, it's Dan Mandis, and I am so glad that California Closets has fixed my closet catastrophe. After exact measuring and planning, they came over and got to work. Yeah, once it was all plotted out on their 3D CAD system, the pieces are measured, cut, and precisely installed into my space. It was clean, fast, and professional, and above all, my new closets look and function great. Now, this was my dormer, and now this is my new dormer thanks to California Closets. Look at all of this added space for shirts and shoes, you name it, and it is cut so precisely, simply amazing. And my old closet that has now been reborn as the ultimate in style and functionability, making the best use of the space that I had. They can work on just about anything: bedrooms, garages, home offices, closets, pantries, and so much more. Find them online, CaliforniaClosets.com, and see what they can do for you. You can schedule a free design consultation. Mention my name, CaliforniaClosets.com.
It's 25 minutes past the hour of 6 o'clock. We're coming to you live from Mount Juliet, the Cedar Creek Marina. This is Scoreboard's restaurant, getting you ready for the big debate party here tonight. Packed crowd. They're very well behaved. Now they're a little too well behaved, if you ask me. We're so glad that everybody's here. We before we went to the break, we said we're going to play this little bit of sound. This is from CNN, a segment that they do called the K-File. And the reporter's name begins with a K, and that's where it came from, I guess. And he brings out stuff that seems to shock, stun, and amaze the CNN anchors. Here is the latest edition of the K-File on CNN.
Kamala Harris releasing details of her policy positions for the first time on her campaign website. A K-File investigation has uncovered, meantime, a 2019 questionnaire. And in this questionnaire, Harris laid out some much more liberal stances, among them on immigration. So in 2019, in what K-File found, she said she would cut funding to ICE, writing, quote, "Our immigrant detention system is out of control, and I believe we must end the unfair incarceration of thousands of individuals, families, and children. I was one of the first senators after President Trump was elected to advocate for a decrease in funding to ICE." Well, now, of course, she's touting the Biden administration's executive order to crack down on the border. K-File's Andrew Kaczynski joins me now. Andrew, that's pretty incredible on its own when you're talking about what you found here on ICE. What else did you find?
Yeah, and this was a questionnaire that she filled out for the ACLU, and this questionnaire is really an interesting snapshot in time of that 2019 Democratic primary. Kamala Harris was trying to get to the left of Bernie Sanders. She was trying to get to the left of Elizabeth Warren, and you really see that in a lot of these answers. And I want to walk our viewers through a little bit of what she said. Let's just take immigration and look at what she said here. She said on immigration, she made this open-ended pledge to end immigrant detention. She said she supported taxpayer-funded gender transition surgeries for detained migrants. She also said she supported
taxpayer-funded gender transition surgeries for detained migrants. She actually said she supported that.
She both wrote and answered in the affirmative when she was asked this. Oh. And she said she also supported it for federal prisoners. Now, she also pledged to slash immigration detention by 50%, close all family and private facilities, and decrease funding for ICE, and then the end ICE detainers with local law enforcement.
I mean, these are things that, you know, it would be hard to think that you would come up with taxpayer funding gender transitions for detained migrants, and yet this, as you say, written and verbally. You know, what else, you know, did you find?
Well, let's take a look at her answer here on drugs. She got asked about, the question from the ACLU was, since drug use is better addressed as a public health issue through treatment and other programming, will you support the decriminalization at the federal level of all drug possession for personal use? And Harris answers yes. Now, what would that mean? Well, it mean the federal all drug possession. That's not just marijuana, which she alluded to in her answer to this question, but it also would mean
federal level of all drug possession,
fentanyl, crack, use. Cocaine, things like that. Yeah.
Have they responded to you on her changes on these issues?
So we did put this question to the Harris campaign about the entire ACLU questionnaire, and the Harris campaign didn't answer any questions from CNN. Instead, they just provided a statement from an unnamed Harris campaign advisor that just said, the vice president's positions have been shaped by 3 years of effective governance as part of the Biden-Harris administration. Now, they declined to CNN to elaborate on what those positions were. And then they also provided this statement, which they attributed to a spokesperson saying, as president, she will take that same pragmatic approach, focusing on common sense solutions for the sake of progress. So where does she stand on this, all this questionnaire today? We don't know, and they won't say.
It's pretty incredible stuff. Thank you very much.
Common sense.
Using tax dollars to snip federal prisoners.
Yeah,
common sense.
Well, now, here's the good news. The CNN audience has now been exposed to something they haven't heard before. Here's the bad news. There ain't much CNN audience. I mean, it's just not much there. I think on good days, this radio station has more listeners than they have viewers in the demo. So, but I mean, it is interesting that they're now starting to. So, and I think Aaron Burnett's going, really?
Well,
really?
Remember I think it was last week, they exposed that Harris used parts of Donald Trump's wall in an ad regarding immigration.
That was last week's K-File, right?
Aaron Burnett was also shocked at that. Is she not on Twitter? Like, does she not read anything other than her own echo chamber?
I think that really, honestly, you might really be surprised because in Washington, D.C., if you're somebody like Erin Burnett, or I guess she's based, I don't know, was she based in New York? I'm not sure where she's based, but wherever she's based, she hangs around with other journalists who see the world the way she does. They go to the soccer fields in Washington, D.C., these reporters, and their kids are playing soccer with other people who see the world the way they do. They never watch the other side.
Well, and when we come back, I don't know if we have to go to the news break right now, but when we come back, I'll tell you a story about a CNN executive producer that talked to me in Birmingham, Alabama one time and said very much the same. They were shocked and amazed that anyone thought that they were biased at all.
Yeah.
Shocked and amazed.
I know. Well, let's take a break for news at 31 past the hour. It is 39 minutes now past the hour of 6 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. Brian Wilson coming to you live from the Scoreboard restaurant at the Cedar Creek Marina.
Y'all can do better than that. Come on, y'all can do better than that. Yeah, there you go.
We are getting ready for the big debate, which happens in a little more than an hour from now on ABC. We're going to be carrying it live here on Super Talk 99.7. But for now, it's Chris Hand, Brian Wilson, Matt Murphy, Dan Mandis here in the marina as we are getting ready to get ready for that whole event. So we had a conversation about how difficult it is for the media to sort of believe that. I sort of think that may be the case with David Muir and the other anchor.
I forget her first name. It's Victoria or Angela or something.
Kristen, I think.
Kristen Davis.
Yeah,
okay,
Kristen
there you go.
Davis is her name. I wonder if they can even imagine. I read a book one time where somebody was sort of explaining what happens at CBS News. It was, what's the guy's name? Goldberg. Goldberg wrote a book about it, and he said, look, they just can't imagine that there's another way of looking at the world. That and their friends and their little silo.
Bernie Goldberg?
Bernie Goldberg, yeah. He wrote this book, and he said he told the story about how there was a story on the air one night on the CBS Evening News, and that the producer, Susan Zirinsky, she's a very, very well-known producer at CBS, had been trying to find the women's perspective in a particular story. And they went to the National Association for Women. National Now is what it was. And Bernie went to her later and said, well, why of all people did you choose them to give the women's perspective? And her answer was, is there another? I mean, just looked at her with big doe eyes and said, is there another perspective? And they actually just can't imagine it.
You know it, Brian, more than anyone on this stage, and probably more than anyone in this room, because you lived inside of the Beltway and you watched how these people operate. I experienced it firsthand in 2017 in Alabama when I was in Birmingham. There was a Senate race between Judge Roy Moore and Doug Jones. And Roy Moore, by happenstance, got into a runoff, and by happenstance won the runoff because he was going against a very poorly run candidacy on the other side of the Republican runoff. And so Roy Moore was always a flawed candidate. Regardless of all of that, CNN took a lot of interest in that Senate race, lot of interest in that Senate race. And so I was on with my co-host, Andrea Lindenberg, in the mornings, and we were asked by a lot of national media to offer commentary about Alabama and about the race. And we offered ourselves to CNN, and we got holy hell from our audience for going on CNN. And our rationale and reasoning was, well, if we don't, someone will, and we want to represent Alabama in the proper way to the national audience. I thought it was a very good argument. That said, one of the executive producers was down with us, and a guy by the name of Jason, I forget his last name, he used to be on CNN, I don't think he's on there anymore, a very skinny fellow, looked like a skeleton, one way or the other. They're in our studio, and they're setting up cameras to interview us. And Ani, my co-host, said to the executive producer, boy, we get a lot of hell for having you guys, for going on you guys' network. And she's like, why? And we said, well, because you're biased. You swing to the left. And this woman sat there for 20 minutes talking to us about how she could not believe it. She was like, no, we're straight down the middle. No, you mean MSNBC. No, we mean CNN. No. We call balls and strikes. We don't do that at CNN. And I'm like, are you mentally insane? And I asked her, I said, when is the last time you went to one of the small towns in Alabama or Tennessee in this example and talked to the people and found out where they come from, what they're all about? They don't do it.
Flyover country.
They don't do it.
Yeah.
They don't do it. It's amazing.
All right, now here's my question, though. All that being said, now this information on CNN, will that turn the audience? Because CNN, a lot of folks are watching CNN and they're to the left. And so do you think that'll convince the
Here's an interesting factoid. Everybody's carrying this debate, whether it's on ABC or they're actually producing the debate, but every other network is carrying it. You can't watch TV tonight without bumping into it somewhere. And what's going to be interesting is the numbers that come out afterwards. In the last debate, CNN produced the debate. CNN anchors asked the question. Fox had higher numbers.
Yep.
So, it really matters where you get your post-debate analysis. And I think, look, everybody was sort of in the same lane when Biden, did so poorly. Everybody, including the mainstream media, who had an interest in getting rid of Biden, So they were willing to go ahead and jump down go down that path. Yeah, he wasn't very good. He wasn't very strong. Donald Trump really won this debate. Everybody agreed. I don't think there'll be an agreement tonight.
No,
they'll be split about who won this debate.
I think they'll be poised to support and assist Kamala Harris for the most part. No question.
Well, that's what they do. And to me, they have a vested. And you know what's so weird? Here's what I don't understand is Kamala Harris has completely ignored the media. She's completely ignored them. She won't answer their questions. She won't do interviews except for that joke with Dana Bash. Yet they will stand up for her and they'll give her cover as best they can, even though she's completely ignoring them. Because I feel like this whole thing is sort of like an act. You know, the media will pretend to be upset because that's what they're supposed to do, and Harris will just continue doing what she's doing.
She got very high marks for that interview. Harris did, but I mean, it's because the mainstream media said that Dana Bash did a good job. But I you know, honestly, you gotta think about where people are and where they get their analysis, because probably more people will see the analysis than will actually see the debate.
And clips.
Right.
Yeah, well, the most viral clips from CNN after the last debate were Scott Jennings laying out exactly what happened.
Yeah.
He's a gem on CNN. But
he is.
What do you think the headlines are going to be tomorrow morning? It's going to be they're going to try and paint it as Harris winning. As long as she doesn't come out the gate, fall flat on her face, they're going to try and paint it as a victory.
So then here's my question. What does Kamala Harris falling flat on her face look like? Does it mean that she is overly aggressive to the point where she's tremendously unlikable? Or is it that she is word salading and just confused?
I think it's both. I think it's the word salad. Like when you see her in her head looking for that answer, you know, she's going to go back in the Rolodex and try and find that prep. I think that's falling flat on your face.
When I first started this gig in my 20s, right, and you would get invited to do speeches and you would get invited to speak in front of groups, and I was accustomed to doing that, but I would prepare speeches, like to the word, prepare speeches. And eventually I realized that it was a mistake to do it because I had a command of the issues. I had a command of the conversation. And in preparing the speech, I was dedicated to staying on the speech, and I was far too focused on the speech and not on the audience and how they were receiving what I was saying. I believe that falling on her face is over-preparation, is being over-prepped for answers about fracking, over-prepped for answers about the economy or crime or immigration. And you're trying to harken back to those memorized paragraphs that I think she has memorized. And if she does that and she loses it and kind of loses her place in her head and her focus, I think that could be an example of falling on her face.
She's under a lot of pressure here because, you know, look, I mean, Donald Trump has done that. Look, Donald Trump walks into every situation with an abundance of confidence. I think we can all agree on that. There's hardly any situation that he's going to walk into that he doesn't have confidence. He's been on these stages. He's been doing this for a while. She is under an immense lot of pressure to sort of, she understands, no notes. I'm going to be standing for an hour. I'm not going to have the ability to talk to him directly. There's all these things, and she's going to be nervous. I think she's going to be real nervous. And look, of the two people, I don't think she has an abundance of confidence as she sits down tonight. I think she's going to be very nervous, and I think she may crater.
Well, you said something a second ago that kind of caught my ear. You said you would be focused on your speech and not the audience. There's no audience in the building. And I think that one of the advantages, same with the last debate, is going to go to Trump. He understands TV. Kamala Harris does not understand TV, not one bit. So I think the advantage is absolutely going to be to Trump in that realm.
I also believe that you will see her think of David Muir and Davis as allies.
Yep.
And I think if she finds herself in a bad spot, watch for her to look to those two to get her out of it. To look to those two as, well, you guys understand what I'm saying. If you don't have an audience, to your point, Chris, then you're going to look to your allies. Your allies are sitting right in front of you in your mind. And so if you find yourself in a bad way, you look to them, oh, you understand what I'm saying.
I wonder how much fact-checking there'll be tonight by the anchors.
Well, all Trump. I mean, that's what they did. I mean, even in the face of Biden absolutely just falling flat on his face and his tuchus and everything else, all the fact-checking seemed to happen on Trump's side of the ledger.
But it does seem like, though, there's more to fact-check with Kamala Harris than Donald Trump. because Kamala Harris is literally a known liar about every single policy right now, not to mention a lot of the stuff that happened during the Biden administration. I guarantee you she's going to bring up Agenda 2025.
It is, yeah, no doubt that will come up.
Absolutely.
And the ABC folks will let her do it, too. That's the thing.
Trump should look at her and say, "Is Project 2025 in the room right now?"
Yeah, that's right. It's 50 minutes now past the hour of 6 o'clock.
Hey, it's Dan Mandis, and I am so glad that California Closets has fixed my closet catastrophe. After exact measuring and planning, they came over and got to work. Yeah, once it was all plotted out on their 3D CAD system, the pieces are measured, cut, and precisely installed into my space. It was clean, fast, and professional, and above all, my new closets look and function great. Now, this was my dormer, and now this is my new dormer thanks to California Closets. Look at all of this added space for shirts and shoes, you name it, and it is cut so precisely, simply amazing. And my old closet that has now been reborn as the ultimate in style and functionability, making the best use of the space that I had. They can work on just about anything: bedrooms, garages, home offices, closets, pantries, and so much more. Find them online, CaliforniaClosets.com, and see what they can do for you. You can schedule a free design consultation. Mention my name, CaliforniaClosets.com.
Hear this? Let me turn it up.
It is now 57 minutes past the hour of 6 o'clock. For the next few minutes, let's sort of wrap things up. We have one more hour to go before the debate begins. Brian Wilson alongside Chris Hand, Matt Murphy, Dan Mandis. We're all down here at Scoreboard's Cedar Creek Marina in Mount Juliet.
Packed house,
Big
baby.
crowd tonight.
Packed house.
Big crowd. I mean, we've got overflow.
Yeah, we
even had the Cats for Trump people show up.
we did.
Yeah.
We've got kitty cats in the audience.
That's quite a look.
Cats for Trump, ducks for Trump.
All right, so an hour and 3 minutes until this thing kicks off. Any other thoughts?
I just can't wait to see how it all plays out. I agree that I think Kamala Harris, she's nervous. It's her own doing because she has been hiding from the media. So Trump has been all over the place doing interviews and town halls and everything else. Kamala Harris is nowhere to be found. So she finds herself now in a very foreign position.
You know, the numbers were working for her.
They were.
By being silent. But I think people have sort of figured that out now. And there's a lot of indication that her numbers are sort of very gradually pulling back, especially among men voters, now pulling back from her. I think Democrats were so excited to have anybody but Joe Biden that they just immediately glommed on to the first thing that came along, and it happened to be Kamala Harris. And I think that, I think now they've had a chance to hear a little bit more about her, seen her, the way she comports herself on the stage. I think now that they're starting to come back just a little bit. Still virtually, though, when you look at the numbers, it's too close.
It is neck and neck. Man.
It is neck and neck, yeah.
Dan, how in the world are you up at this hour? I can't believe. You got up what time this morning?
Midnight.
Mm-hmm. How the heck do you stay up?
It's funny you should ask, Matt. Every morning I have Space Cowboy coffee.
Hey!
And if you guys want to buy some, we've got a booth back there. It's Space Cowboy Coffee. It is my favorite coffee, actually. And if you want to go online and buy some, it is spacecowboycoffee.com. It is what keeps me going.
Does it come in those little cups?
They come in Keurig cups.
Yes.
Or ground or in whole bean.
Uh-huh.
Love Space Cowboy Coffee.
They have an espresso flavor?
They do, actually.
Do they really?
They have a new espresso flavor as well.
Do they now?
Space Cowboy Coffee.
Please,
Check them
Dan,
out back there.
Tell me more.
Tell me more for the next 30 seconds, Dan.
Do you guys remember in 2016 when Trump showed up to the Hillary debate and he brought all the accusers of Bill Clinton?
Yes.
Wouldn't it be awesome if he showed up tonight with a gang of cats on leashes?
Walking a duck on stage.
He just walks out with a duck.
All right, we are live in Mount Juliet. We'll be back for another hour of exciting analysis and a little bit of weirdness. It's all straight ahead right now, 7 o'clock.
From ABC News, I'm Daria Albinger. 1 hour to the ABC News presidential debate.
Tonight, you're going to watch Vice President Harris lay out a plan for this country.
Minnesota Governor Tim Walz, the Democratic vice presidential nominee, with props for his running mate, but Florida Congressman Mike Waltz is predicting the night will belong to former President Trump.
As he just said recently, I think he look at the American people and say, I know some of you may not like me. I know some of you may not like my style, but your wallet was better off. Your family was safer. The world was more secure.
It's the first time the two will meet.
I was just there in the debate stage, and you can see just how intimate it is. These two people are only going to be about 6 feet apart, and Trump and Harris have never even spoken to each other, met face to face, or looked each other in the eye. So this is going to be a huge moment.
ABC Selena Wang in Philadelphia. No end in sight to the fire danger in Southern California.
In LA County, new evacuation orders of families grabbing what they can before fleeing the fast-moving bridge fire.
Right now, I'm grabbing anything that has a face on it.
East of there in San Bernardino County, the National Guard now joining an all-out assault on the line fire that spurned more than 40 square miles. Officials expanding evacuation orders. Some 65,000 homes and businesses now under threat.
ABC's Mola Lengi in Southern California. Preparations along the Texas and Louisiana Gulf coasts ahead of Hurricane Francine. It's expected to make landfall tomorrow southwest of New Orleans. A student's in custody and other in critical condition following a shooting at an Omaha high school. Student Daniel Westcott saw someone on the ground bleeding.
We've done the drills and everything, but you never think it'll be your school. You always see it on the news. You never think it'll be you.
Police believe it was an isolated incident between the suspect and the victim. A jury has been sworn in for the federal trial of 3 former Memphis police officers accused in the beating death of Tyree Nichols. You're listening to ABC News.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to your 2024 presidential debate pregame show on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. My name is Matt Murphy, and I am proud and pleased to be joined not only by a barbershop quartet of commentary on the main stage at Scoreboard Cedar Creek, but by a tremendous listening audience online, on the radio, and right here in the house, as we are all getting our food on and getting our drink on and getting ready to watch what should be an incredibly exciting debate between Donald J. Trump and Kamala Harris tonight. I am joined, of course, by Dan Mandis to my left. Heard mornings 5 to 9 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Chris Hand, 9 to noon. Matt Murphy, that's me, noon to 3. And then you just finished up with the drive, and Brian Wilson remains with us. Good evening, gentlemen.
Good evening. I'm excited. I'm starting to get palpably excited.
I mean, I remember, and I was thinking back as we were sitting on stage, we were on stage at Hop Springs.
Right.
It feels like 3 years ago. It was not even 3 months ago.
Yep.
And we were all highly anticipatory of what we were going to see, not so much out of Donald Trump, but out of Joe Biden. And I think all of us had it wrong. I don't know that we could have possibly anticipated what a low-energy, discombobulated performance that it was. And I'm thinking, applying that to tonight, and I'll start with you, Dan. I mean, I think it's the unknowns of what we will see in less than an hour that has us on such high alert.
What's interesting is you talk about the unknowns, and I think we know what Donald Trump we're going to get. I truly do. I believe that he's a smart man, and he learned from the debate with Joe Biden, and that was epic. Kamala Harris, we don't know what she's going to do. We don't know if she's going to try to be aggressive as a prosecutor like she has done in the past. We don't know if she's going to do the whole I'm speaking thing. I do believe that the muted microphones are going to be to Donald Trump's advantage.
I do
because
too. Yeah.
The stories that we covered earlier this week and last week, where they were apoplectic, the Harris campaign was, because their whole goal, their whole strategy was to try to trigger Donald Trump. They're not going to be able to do that. And so now the question is, how is she going to explain all of the changes in policy, her silence on policy, avoiding reporters in interviews? She has a lot to prove and a lot to answer for.
Trump was on with Sean Hannity, and Sean Hannity said, "What's your strategy going to be?" And he said, "Well, I'm going to let her talk."
There you go.
But then he also said something. He quoted, who was it? A great fighter. Maybe I forget which fighter it was. Maybe Mike Tyson said, Mike Tyson had a saying that, you have a strategy until you get punched in the face, and then the strategy goes out the door. He left open the possibility that he will adjust his strategy as it's going on, and I wonder what that would look like. He was specifically concerned about whether or not he was going to be treated fairly by the moderators. And he said, if I'm not treated fairly, I'll have a different approach.
Chris, one of the things that I've noticed Trump does, he resets where the media is in any given circumstance based on what Brian just mentioned. He did this with CNN. Before the debate on CNN, he went out on platforms and said, they're not going to be fair to me. They're not going to be honest with the American people. It's 3 against 1, I remember him saying. And I believe he moved the needle with CNN, saying, well, we'll show him, we'll be fair. He's doing the same thing with ABC.
Yeah, he's putting the pressure on him. I don't think he's doing it to the extent with ABC that he did to CNN, but he definitely moved the needle with CNN. I think tonight we're going to see a more reserved Donald Trump, similar to what we saw in the Joe Biden debate. I think that the almost getting assassinated has completely changed this man.
Do you think so, Billy?
Well, he's subtle.
How could it not?
Smoother. Really? He's more reserved, and he's not going to be rattled by a Kamala Harris saying, I'm speaking. He's not going to get agitated the way he did in those debates with Joe Biden in 2020. He just doesn't have time for that anymore.
Donald Trump is so good with the comeback. I mean, over his years in his career in real estate and in business, obviously his show The Apprentice, and then getting into politics, he's just so comfortable in his own skin. I don't think he plans these things. I get nervous when I hear that he doesn't really, quote unquote, do traditional debate prep, Dan. Right. Does it make you nervous at all, or do you feel like he's got a comfort with the issues, got a comfort with himself, that he feels, ease with coming back with the quip. If she throws something out, he'll be able to come back with something.
What I like about what he's done is he's working with Matt Gaetz and Tulsi Gabbard. And Tulsi, as everybody remembers, really took on Kamala Harris during the Democrat primary. That's number one. Number two, this is a former president who has annihilated how many other Republicans in primaries. He has been here, done this, and he has dealt with a lot smarter and a lot more politically savvy politicians than Kamala Harris.
Well, and I would say, too, gentlemen, that he's totally changed politics, perhaps forever, in the sense that I think the American people demand authenticity more than they ever have. We always expected polish. We always expected poise. We always expected that perfect answer to the questions asked. Donald Trump brings a character that is rough around the edges, but at the same time, he brings his authentic self to the table, which I think the American people appreciate.
I think that that's something the Americans want more than anything right now is authenticity. Just tell me the uncomfortable truth, please. Like, I don't need you to tell me nice, sweet lies. Tell me the raw, real facts. And Donald Trump doesn't have a problem with doing that. And he's going to do that tonight with Kamala Harris and her record.
Well, listen, I think one of the things that you mentioned, Matt Gaetz giving him apparently some advice. One of the things that I think is interesting is that, the people who have been real political observers, people who do this for a living, have said that the most important thing that can happen tonight would be to define Kamala Harris, and that both Kamala Harris and Donald Trump will be trying to do that, obviously in very different ways, but she's the unknown. I mean, we know what Trump is. I mean, you know Trump by now. He has been president. He's been in he's not a big mystery. Everybody knows what Donald Trump will bring to the table. We don't know that much about her, and he's going to try to define her in one way, and she's going to try to define herself in a different way. It'll be interesting to see which of those two emerges as the dominant theme that people walk away with.
I know we've only seen it once, and it was pretty obvious very early on in the debate setting that Joe Biden was not on his meds. As I mentioned at the beginning of the top of the hour, we expected State of the Union Joe, right? We expected that guy who, whether it was caffeine, maybe a Space Cowboy coffee, I don't know, but there was something that Joe had in him that fed him, and he was really energetic during the State of the Union. All of us, I think, anticipated that Joe. We did not get it. And so it's difficult to analyze the format because Joe was so bad in it. But do you like the idea of cut mics? Do you like the idea of, hey, you're going to speak, you're going to answer your question, I'll give you a chance to rebut, but only after this person's done, to stop some of that crossover that we've seen in recent debates?
Yeah, because Kamala Harris's biggest problem is speaking and defending her policies and defending the flip-flop. So if Trump lets her speak, she is going to speak herself into, the usual place where she goes, all that weird stuff that she does, the unburdened stuff, whatever that is. When she starts doing that, it's going to be really bad for her.
And that's going to drive her, I feel like, down a deep well of despair because she's terrified of being clipped on social media. It's one of the reasons why she hid during the VP tenure, because she didn't want Republicans to take something and make fun of her. If she has a bad moment early, she's going to go into the doom spiral. Yeah. She's going to doom spiral.
Yeah.
Well, and I love the idea that she and her camp, after they took over for Joe, I mean, Donald Trump, in resetting all of this, Donald Trump destroyed Joe Biden so much, and Joe Biden did a lot to destroy himself so much, that they had to change horses in the middle of the stream.
He already beat a Democrat candidate.
Right, so he's beaten one Democrat. He's set to beat another Democrat. He abides by their rules. Their rules were set up by themselves and by the very Democrat-leaning media organizations that are running these things. And then when she takes over, she wants to reset all of the rules and change them to her satisfaction, to which Donald Trump said, no, we've already agreed to this thing. Why would I do that?
She wanted notes. She wanted notes.
She wanted to sit, she wanted to have notes, and she wanted an open mic.
Yeah.
And she got none of them.
Well, that's because she, again, not to belabor the point, but she wanted to poke and prod Donald Trump into some sort of a fight. And then, of course, she starts the whole I'm speaking thing, and then she has her little viral moment.
I still think, to a certain extent, they don't really understand Donald Trump. I think that they think that they're going up against 2015, 2016 Trump, and it's just going to be a completely different guy on that stage.
Well, and say what you will about Donald Trump. I mean, and I understand that he has certain flaws that make it easy for certain media organizations to try to exploit it. But he is a difficult nut to crack, in as much as if you try to play in his arena, if you try to get down to where he's living and where he's breathing, you will get destroyed. If you try to stay above the fray, if you will, he'll run under you and he will destroy you. I mean, he has that ability to go around and figure out what you're doing and tack whichever way he needs to in order to accomplish his goals.
Absolutely right. He is. People like to treat him like he's a novice at politics. He's really not. He has learned a lot in the past 8 years.
But I like what you said. Ever since the assassination attempt, he seems to be a more thoughtful individual. And you know, I got a lot of crap for saying this, but I really felt like he was blowing up his messaging time and time and time again. And I was very concerned about it. But have you noticed of late?
Yep.
He has pulled it back. See, about 20-30%, which, you know, was what I've always said he needed to do.
And I've been going the other way. I loved the early messaging, and it stuck. With the black voter base, him saying, "Is she really black?" I thought it was brilliant, and it's still happening. The conversation is still happening online.
We got the Trump pinky, everyone.
Is she still black? But that conversation is still has steam online, and people are still cracking that joke. That kind of stuff gets like embedded and woven into the fabric of this, and it takes root, and it's powerful. While it may not be as political as it needs to be, it does move the needle.
And for me, I was a little more on the fence between you two guys, because I recognize how the mainstream media will stop talking about the issues that really matter and focus exclusively on Trump question, one thing that Trump said. And it's frustrating because for those of us who are embedded in this, when we're in the midst of the forest, we can see everything around us. Sadly, we depend. And, you know, it is the American system, and find me a better one. Wasn't it Winston Churchill to say, find me a better one, and we'll go with that. But it's the system that we deal with, that those that pay the least amount of attention, that plan on voting, that just to start paying attention, we have to catch all of those people up to speed, and sadly, they might be influenced by some of that stuff you're talking about.
I read an interesting article today, and I was going to talk about it on my show, and I never get around to it because of other things. But there's a story out there that talks about people who have completely pulled back. They don't listen to any news. And I have a member of my family who I recently spent some time with who has done that. I mean, I used to go to their house, and there was always like Fox News on. They were always watching. They've completely turned off the TV. And how much of that do you think is going on in America where people are just not paying any attention whatsoever?
Who do you think that benefits as a candidate?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Trump. I think. Only because if you're, especially for the younger generation, 35 and younger, I don't know that do they watch any news on network television? Do they watch any Fox News? Fox News, CNN, MSNBC?
But even in social media, they pulled back completely. There are a group of people out there just have been overwhelmed by it.
Are they going to vote?
That's a question.
That's a good question.
Well, you can hide from the news, but you can't hide from the in-store prices. They still got to go to the grocery store every week. They still got to fill up their car at the gas tank. You're going to see that.
Then I think that favors Trump. I think
absolutely.
Well, and I've been saying for a while, you cannot lie your way out of the grocery store. You cannot lie your way off the gas pump, and that's what people are saying.
Well, that remains to be seen. Well, we'll find out after this election if she was able to lie her way through.
True that. It's 20 minutes after the hour. We'll take a quick timeout. We are live from Scoreboard Cedar Creek as we anticipate the big debate. Coming up in about 40 minutes, Donald Trump versus Kamala Harris. We'll be back in a moment on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
The guaranteed offer is the easiest way to sell your home. It's really simple. We bring you an all-cash offer. You close in as little as 21 days. No home inspections, no lockboxes, no open houses. Go to markspain.com to get a guaranteed offer and start packing.
Hey, what's up, guys? This is Matt Murphy for Members Nutrition. I want to tell you about the Members Nutrition difference, and I want to encourage you to go over to the Members Nutrition website. Number one, they believe at Members Nutrition that they can sell vitamins and supplements at a lower cost point, and they're doing it every single day at membersnutrition.com. Number two, they want to make these products right here in the United States of America, not from some overseas company, and they do that every single day. I encourage you to go to membersnutrition.com. You'll get 50% off your purchase price at checkout. You don't have to put in any codes. Just go to membersnutrition.com. Once again, membersnutrition.com.
Hey, it's Dan Mandis, and I am so glad that California Closets has fixed my closet catastrophe. After exact measuring and planning, they came over and got to work. Yeah, once it was all plotted out on their 3D CAD system, the pieces are measured, cut, and precisely installed into my space. It was clean, fast, and professional, and above all, my new closets look and function great. Now, this was my dormer, and now this is my new dormer thanks to California Closets. Look at all of this added space for shirts and shoes, you name it, and it is cut so precisely, simply amazing. And my old closet that has now been reborn as the ultimate in style and functionability, making the best use of the space that I had. They can work on just about anything: bedrooms, garages, home offices, closets, pantries, and so much more. Find them online, CaliforniaClosets.com, and see what they can do for you. You can schedule a free design consultation. Mention my name, CaliforniaClosets.com.
Super Talk 99.7 WTN, 25 minutes after 7 o'clock, just 35 minutes before the big debate. It is the 2024 presidential debate pregame show. Hello, everyone. We are live from Scoreboard Cedar Creek. If you cannot be with us in person, and I'm telling you, I don't know how many people are here. We got overflow on either side of the facility. We're floating on the river right now, Dan Mandis, and we got people up at the bar area. We got people down. I mean, there are a lot of folks anticipating this big debate coming up in just a few minutes from now. Dan Mandis, Brian Wilson, Chris Hand, with me, Matt Murphy, until 8 o'clock when we turn it over to ABC and David Muir and the moderators of the big debate. I want to ask you guys, I believe, and I said today on my show, that it's all about ICE, I-C-E, and not Immigration Customs Enforcement, but immigration, crime, and economy. Those big three issues, I think, are the issues that Donald Trump needs to highlight over and over and over again, because as we said before the break, you can't lie your way out of the grocery store. You can't lie your way off the local news if you're Kamala Harris with regard to crime in our area, and we all see the results of the immigration. I love where we are on immigration, and Dan, start here. On the immigration issue, there seems to be a reset. With all of this talk about whether Haitians are eating cats or not, no, here's the great thing. The Democrats aren't even arguing that they're not here anymore. They were arguing, oh, that's not true, they're not here. Now we've kind of moved the goalpost, and now they're left to argue whether or not they're eating neighborhood cats We all know that they're here.
So what they're going to do, what Kamala Harris is going to do, is she's going to talk about how what we've all heard her say 1,000 times, the immigration system is broken. Donald Trump forced the Republicans not to vote for the bipartisan immigration deal that came out of the Senate. Donald Trump needs to somehow fact check her on that, because that's her standard pat answer. He needs to hold her accountable when she tries to blame it on the Republicans.
What's the answer, Brian?
I don't know that I know the answer, but I have one more issue that I'd like to add to your list
Sure.
of issues, and that is this whole idea of men playing in women's sports. I think that is, if somehow that can get discussed tonight, you got to pin her down on her earlier positions. It forces her to either go with the gay community or go with soccer moms. One way or the other, she loses. And I hope that somehow that issue comes up tonight, because I think that's one that could really change the game. If it's true that Kamala Harris is getting more women voters, and she decides to say, I'm going to stick with my earlier position, that I support, the right of men to play in women's sports, which she's on record saying, then I think she loses a huge swath of women voters. I think it could really move the needle in this election.
Do you think there's folks out there, because you're right, as far as Trump's having trouble with women, Kamala Harris is doing well with women. Do you think there's a lot of women out there that don't know what her position has been?
I think that's right.
Okay.
What do you think, Chris?
I think that we're looking at it from the conservative lens on what we want the conversation to be, but I think that she's going to try and steer the conversation to the issues of abortion and the issues of gun control. She's going to bring up the recent school shooting in Georgia, and she's going to try to talk about female reproductive care, and Trump is going to have to tactfully get around those issues and also still have a heart about it at the same time, because he's going to have a much wider audience. So he needs to push back on abortion, say it's gone to the states.
Yep.
And he needs to talk about the gun control issue. I think he needs to redirect it in a way that RFK would to the SSRIs.
Well, and I would say on the issue of abortion, I think this is one that Trump could win on with the American people, speaking for himself on it, because what most Americans have heard are the Democrat version of where Trump is on this. Now, Donald Trump, you talk about being his authentic self. I think Donald Trump causes a lot of people in this room or in this listening audience a little concern when he says, no, I'm not in favor of a national ban. I've never been in favor of a national ban. I believe in eliminating Roe v. Wade. We accomplished that. Getting it back to the states, we accomplished that. He does that at the risk of his most conservative and faith-based audience, but they understand that is who he is and that is where he is on the issue.
Don't forget, he came out in favor of IVF and government paying for IVF and all that. So I think that he actually, if he brings that up, he runs the risk of alienating some Republicans too.
Well,
if he brings that's sort of like a.
I think you reset, and if you're Donald Trump, you reset and say, this is what I believe. Let's find out where Kamala Harris is on the issue of abortion up until birth. What restriction would you place on abortion, if any at all, and demand that she answer the question?
Yep.
But I think you're right. I mean, they very much want to play on different issues. It is 7:30 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. We'll take a short time out, be back. We'll continue to dissect the issues that we believe will be discussed in this debate that's happening in 30 minutes. We are live from Scoreboard Cedar Creek on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. It is 7:35, Super Talk 99.7 WTN, live from Scoreboard Cedar Creek in beautiful Mount Juliet, Tennessee. Hello, everybody! And listening all across the great state of Tennessee on Super Talk 99.7 WTN, it is our pregame for the 2024 presidential debate between Donald Trump and Kamala Harris. Dan Mandis, Matt Murphy, Brian Wilson, Chris Hand, here on the main stage in front of a group. God bless all of you for coming out and spending your Tuesday night with us. Thank you, each and every one of you in the audience tonight. We appreciate you so much
this
for
audience,
being here and spending some time with us.
This audience is proving once again that conservatives are far better looking than liberals, and we've proved it time and time again.
There you go.
And I got to tell you, they showed up early. There was a handful of people here right at 3 o'clock when I started.
Love it.
Oh, yeah. We were breaking down some of the issues that, might be more beneficial to Donald Trump, might be more beneficial to Kamala Harris. And one would think that ABC, Muir, and his tag team partner will bring up most of these issues important to the American people. I want to talk about the economy. Now, I mentioned gasoline prices.
Yep.
Gasoline prices actually going down right now, and to a point that I think Kamala Harris, we can expect her to point that out when the issue of the economy comes up. However, she has brought up the idea of price controls, controlling price gouging. I want to ask you three. I'll start with Chris because I've been starting with Dan and Brian. Chris, on the issue of price control, does she even bring this up in the debate tonight? Because it was a disaster when she brought it up.
She has to run away from it, and her poll numbers have stalled since then. It has to be one of the dumbest things that a political candidate has ever said in the history of dumb things. This is worse than a Howard Dean BR. Way worse. It's way worse. I don't think she brings it up one bit. I think she runs away from it. Her staff quietly behind the scenes has been telling the big donors, don't worry, it'll never pass Congress. Like, they understand how much of a disaster that was.
Yeah, but then Trump should bring it up then.
It shows she has not even a fundamental understanding of how the economy works.
No.
She doesn't understand how business works.
Or
she's never held a job in the private sector, I guess, beyond McDonald's, and even that seems to be in question.
That got fact-checked. It did. McDonald's cannot confirm.
Here's the question, though. I agree with you. I don't believe she knows how the economy works. But what if she believes that the American people don't know how the economy works? And this is just a really cynical...
There's always a group of people in America that will this is what they're going to do stuff for me, and it's not. I'm going to get stuff from the government.
Yep.
And it works with a certain group of people, and including, surprisingly, young people are not very sophisticated about this kind of stuff, and all they want their student loans paid off. They want to know what the government's going to do for them. They feel like they can't get a leg up. The reason they can't get a leg up is the economy is a disaster. If you get the economy back up and where it needs to be, these things will right themselves over time. Let the free enterprise system do what the free enterprise system does when you get out of the way.
Kamala Harris has said this on her own. What do we know about 18 to 24-year-olds? They are dumb.
They are dumb.
They are so dumb.
Well, I mean, and I do believe that it was a moment of honesty on the part of her campaign when she came out with this grand economic plan. And in the liberal enclave where Kamala Harris was holding court, I'm certain that it sounded like a great idea for a couple of reasons. They rolled out Bidenomics, and they pretended that the Inflation Reduction Act would actually reduce inflation when, in fact, you cannot infuse the economy with trillions of more dollars that you're just borrowing against the good faith and credit of the United States government and expect that the inflationary rates will go down. So they're running around, and she's on record. Ooh, Bidenomics. We love Bidenomics. We call that Bidenomics. So you can't not take credit for Bidenomics, and at the same time, you have to have someone to blame, in other words. And I think they thought it was a great idea to blame evil business, thinking that the American people were stupid enough to believe that business has anything to do with the inflationary rates that are currently going on in the country. And I agree. I tend to agree with Chris. I think she runs away from it. But, Dan, to your point, Donald Trump needs to bring this up and say, look, your first response to dealing with the economy was to price control the economy. Where were you in 1971 when Richard Nixon tried the very same thing to disastrous results?
He needs to say, I understand your father was a Marxist and he probably instilled these ideas in you at a very young age. But
well, the other thing to think about, yes, gas prices are going down, but people are riddled with credit card debt from the last 3.5 years.
Right.
So there's still, I believe, a level of PTSD that the American people have where, okay, prices are going down, that's all fine.
I mean, honestly, the rate of the raises that people have gotten has not kept up with inflation over the last 3.5 years, so they're behind. And they understand that, it's getting tough to make those your monthly payment, make your monthly nut. It gets tougher and tougher and tougher. They're feeling the squeeze. The question is, who do they believe can better solve that problem? Do they have a memory that serves them as to when Trump was in office and the economy was pretty strong and inflation was low? Or are they going to just take whatever Kamala says we're going to do to solve the problem?
Donald Trump has demonstrated, as we've been discussing over this last hour and a half or so, a principled, disciplined nature. And part of that disciplined nature involves a very touchy subject, and that is the 2020 election cycle. Do you believe that ABC tries to dredge that back up tonight by asking a question about 2020, attempting to get Trump back on record, saying it was a stolen election, etc.? He's been very good about not bringing that up, just answering the question and moving on. Lately.
Will you pardon the J6ers?
Yep.
That's going to come up.
And what does Trump say? What is the answer?
Well, the answer is it depends on each individual person.
Right.
That's the answer. It's a case-by-case basis. If a grandma walked in and prayed, she did a lot less than people during the Summer of Love.
I think the answer is I'll tell you whether or not I'm pardoning the January 6th protesters when we find out whether Joe Biden is pardoning his son Hunter.
See, I think the pivot is, well, yeah, I'll pardon people that didn't commit a crime. You bailed out people that did commit crimes.
That's good. That's brilliant. That's great.
Good.
Yeah, I like that.
That's exactly right, which brings up where she was and what she was doing during the summer of 2020 when Donald Trump was trying to create a solution to COVID-19 created by China, released in Wuhan. China. She is, as you say, bailing out protesters and allowing people to hit back the streets, which relates directly to the C in the ICE campaign, and that is crime. I think this resonates with the American people more than the Democrats give them credit for. I mean, they expect that the inner cities are going to be crime-ridden, but when the people in Mount Juliet are feeling it, when people in the suburbs are feeling the crime rate go up around them, that causes them a lot of concern.
Well, I think part of what's going on, though, the story of crime in America has changed. Because what's going on is that, we're all used to a certain level of crime, but now that we have Venezuelans coming in, now that we have Haitians coming in, and the people that are committing these heinous crimes, are coming across Biden and Harris's southern border as the borders are, or they're being flown in.
Yes, that's what I was going to say, or they're flying them in.
Yeah, so I mean, Trump has got to make that point because crime is it's different now, and it's more insidious, and it's being done by people who have already committed the crime of sneaking into our country.
Well, and they're coming in large numbers, and they're already organized.
Yes.
They're coming in with an organization that we haven't seen. When you see with the moped gangs in New York City, you see it in Michigan when they're bringing Wi-Fi jammers to break into homes. This is a different level of sophistication. This isn't a snatch and grab, smash a window, steal a stereo. It's not that.
Well, and I think it goes back to, all of this started after, Trump leaves office, Biden comes in, his executive orders on day one, dismantling a lot of the immigration process that Donald Trump had put in place, right? Well, at first you see a lot of the people that are just looking for a better life. And I don't necessarily begrudge those people, except to say that we can't let everyone in. Once the organized crime in Venezuela, in Mexico, in Guatemala, and these other places realize, wait a minute, it's this easy to get in, we can organize and mobilize, and that's what you're seeing when you talk about some of those gang activities.
And the 25,000 people from China. Let's not forget about thousands upon thousands of Chinese secret Chinese police stations operating within our country under the Biden-Harris regime.
Or the guys with connections to ISIS.
Yep.
Right. I think that's the real question. Is there something else? This is an inflection point, no doubt. Whatever happens tonight will have an impact on the election, I believe, one way or the other. Don't know, can't quite see how it's going to work out, but it will have an impact. Is there anything else on the horizon that you guys see that could change things?
Well, gosh, is there an October surprise? There was a time back when we were younger men, when we talked about the October surprise, right?
That's when everybody voted on the same day.
Well, right. And so things have changed. Now, October surprise has become August surprise because you've got to get it in there before the early voting starts. So whether or not there is a new October surprise, I mean, I think we've cleared the lawfare away from Donald Trump, so there's not really any other surprise that can come from that. When Judge Juan Merchan decided to suspend any sentencing of Donald Trump until after the election, which, by the way, just a quick vote of the panel, I mean, Donald Trump never gets sentenced to anything in New York City, right? No? I mean, because after the election, there's no point in it, one way or the other, whoever wins. So, yeah, you get beyond that. I don't know. Dan, what do you think?
Talk about an October surprise?
Like a surprise or something new that could change the dynamic.
I got two things for you.
All right.
Number one, horrifying thought, a terror attack.
Yep, that's what I'm thinking.
Number two, Taylor Swift. If Taylor Swift comes out, I know nobody wants to hear it, but if she comes out...
I think she's too smart for that. I think she's going to go full Michael Jordan, Republicans buy shoes too. But
I hope so.
But we've had a June surprise, a July surprise, an August surprise, a September surprise. Why wouldn't something else happen during this election cycle?
And I want to entertain this for a minute, Dan, because I'm the poo-pooer when it comes to Taylor Swift. I poo-poo this idea that she moves the needle that much. I mean, you think, forget the 20-somethings. I mean, and I'll get back to them. Do you think she moves the needle with anybody 30 plus?
Yeah.
I mean, so she motivates people to go vote.
Early 30s, I think so.
If that is the case, America is freaking doomed.
You're just figuring this out.
No. If Taylor's if you think America's doomed, then what are we doing up here, right? But if Taylor Swift, a singer, motivates a 32-year-old to go and vote for Kamala Harris based on her, and you guys know how I am on I hate endorsements. I hate the thought of endorsements because every time if someone goes to the polls and votes based on the way that someone else tells them to vote, that person is not a thinking human, and they don't need to vote to begin with. It infuriates me, the idea that this, and I know you're probably right, which is what ticks me off most.
Dan didn't say it would influence thinking humans.
I said it would influence Swifties. Because Taylor Swift, I mean, think about it. How long has she been around?
You got Dan to say that Swifties are non-thinking humans. Good for you, Hans.
She doesn't have to make an endorsement. She can just simply say, I think it's important that you go vote. And that will drive a lot of young people who will likely vote for Kamala Harris to the polls.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Or, and when she says that, she'll be holding a big thing of cookies that says Kamala Harris, like she did with Joe Biden.
Maybe Taylor Swift's a Trump fan. You never know.
She's been hugging up on Brittany Mahomes, and Mahomes' wife is a Trump fan.
You never know. I mean, maybe that's a yin and yang thing with her and Mr. Double Shot Travis Kelce. You never know.
You never know.
So on the 20-somethings, you think how you think it moves the needle enough?
I think this election is really close, and so anything will move the needle a little bit. And with Taylor Swift, she is, I'm sorry, man, but she's huge, and she's huge with the 18 and ups. And especially in the 20-year-old females, man, I'm telling you.
What a Taylor Swift endorsement could really do is help them fake the momentum, fake the poll numbers, fake the surge, and then do what they need to do come November.
I mean, look at what Beyonce was doing all her stuff at the Kamala events, and Beyonce comes out and she's singing. It added to all that manufactured hype. This would be the same thing.
Thankfully, the supporters of Taylor Swift are lazy, and hopefully they would forget that they're supposed to go to the polls.
Hey, did you hear that we got Matt to say that Taylor Swift fans are lazy?
I feel like we have one large anti-Taylor promo.
I stand by that. I think our P1 stand with me on this issue, Dan.
Absolutely.
All right, it's 49 after the hour. We'll take a quick timeout now. We'll come back and get a wrap-up from the panel. Brian Wilson, Chris Hand, Dan Mandis, and Matt Murphy at Scoreboard Cedar Creek, highly anticipating the debate that will start in just over 11 minutes. You're listening to Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Back in a moment.
Yeah.
The minutes are ticking down. The minutes have become seconds before the 2024 presidential debate between Donald Trump and Kamala Harris. We are live at Scoreboard Cedar Creek. Can I hear it, folks? Come on. Wow. That is just incredible. So we're wrapping up in the next 4 minutes or so, and we're going to get off this stage, and we're going to give you this big screen behind us. We've got other televisions at Scoreboard Cedar Creek, and if you're listening at home, you can hear the debate live on Super Talk 99.7 WTN, so never you fear. And I would be very curious how this debate plays on radio versus on television, because we know that these things play very differently on radio versus television. Yeah. But I want to go around the table and
the Kennedy-Nixon debates.
That's right. That's what kind of what started it all. People that, for those who don't know, and Brian, you well know, you were commentating on it back then.
No, I wasn't. I'm not that old, but I do have a memory of the debate as a child.
Do you really?
I really do. Watching it in my living room with my parents.
And as the story goes, people who watched it on television, because television was such a new thing, Kennedy understood it. Kennedy understood how to appear on TV, much like Donald Trump understands how to work the television. And people thought that Kennedy won who watched it on television. People listening on radio thought Nixon
won. Right?
The great backstory there is that the Kennedy people gave the makeup guy to Nixon. So Kennedy's people set up Nixon to look a little bit disheveled that
pasty
day.
And kind of sweaty and odd looking. Speaking of, hey Dan, how are you?
I'm good. Listen, it's late. I'm usually in REM sleep by now.
We're in the punchy phase of the proceedings. Let's start with you, Mandis. Since we're going to get you, I know you'll get home, you'll get some sleep and absorb some of this. But what are your big expectations for tonight's proceedings?
Trump's going to be disciplined. Kamala's going to be a mess, but the media will protect her. So tomorrow morning, the headlines will be that Kamala Harris, she was great and she didn't really hurt herself any, and they'll probably attack Donald Trump for something.
Yeah. Oh, sure. There will absolutely be something. Brian Wilson.
Well, I'd like to think that Donald Trump's going to be very disciplined tonight. I think he will. I hope he doesn't get goaded into reacting, because I think that's exactly her game plan, but I think he's ready for that. If he shows discipline, it'll be a good night for Donald Trump. She's going to be very, very nervous, and I think it will show.
Chris Hand?
I think that we're going to know the winner very quickly. Before you even have to look at the mainstream media, you're going to see viral clips online. Who gets the higher tally of viral clips online? What is trending at the end of the night?
And is that moment?
What is the big moment?
Yeah.
That is going to decide the winner. It's going to come down to 30 seconds to a minute for either candidate.
You know, you bring up that point, Chris, and it's so true. We've always said about these debates, it's the unscripted, unexpected moment. It's the there you go again, or it's the I knew Jack Kennedy, you're no Jack Kennedy. And now those things happen more quickly than ever because of the internet, because of social media, because those things come out even before the debate is done. It's decided what things are going to hit and what things get hot.
Yep.
All right, I would expect...
You didn't ask Brian. You didn't ask Brian.
I asked Brian.
No, I asked
Chris. I asked everybody.
You missed that.
And I finish up by saying...
It was scintillating discussion, man. You would have enjoyed it.
No, it was really good. As Joan said this morning, your toddy whities are getting to you. Oh, popped me right in the head. Here's the thing. If tomorrow... headlines are it was a fairly contested debate and both sides come out equitably, that means Kamala Harris got destroyed tonight.
100%.
Right? And if Kamala Harris somehow holds her own against Donald Trump, they will declare that Kamala Harris is the winner. I don't believe there's any way that they determine that Donald Trump comes out of this debate as the winner, considering what he did to Trump.
The Democrats are going to find out really quickly if they made the smart call by going with Kamala so they could keep that money or not.
Gentlemen, thank you so much. Let's hear it one more time, Scoreboard Cedar Creek. Let's go. Come on. We're getting ready for the big debate tonight at Scoreboard Cedar Creek. Thank you to Dan Mandis, to Brian Wilson, to Chris Hand, for everyone on the table and at Scoreboard Cedar Creek. This is Matt Murphy saying, have a great debate watch, and we'll talk to you tomorrow on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Tonight, the high-stakes showdown here in Philadelphia between Vice President Kamala Harris and former President Donald Trump. Their first face-to-face meeting in this presidential election, their first face-to-face meeting ever.
A historic race for president upended just weeks ago.